You are listening to the Real Men Feel Show with Andy Grant. Real Men Feel encourages men to allow and express all of their emotions. Despite what you may have been taught, all emotions do serve you. Real Men Feel is committed to engaging in discussions that most men aren't having. All links mentioned in each episode are in the show notes found on the blog at realmenfeel.org. Now, let's get into this week's show. Hello and welcome to another edition of Real Men Feel. This is your host, Andy Grant. And today is another in our series of what I'm calling regular guy chats. And this whole idea of a regular guy chat came from a listener. It was actually Al Fleming, who was the first guest as a regular guy. And the concept is that we're just talking to another man. It's not a celebrity. It's not an author. It's not someone with a program to promote. This isn't someone's, next pit stop on their media tour. This is just talking to a regular guy, an everyday man. But even that's not accurate, because you have to be brave and courageous. You have to be more than a regular man to come on the show, to be willing to be seen, to share yourself, to open up. So maybe this, regular guy superhero chat is kind of the best way to go. And, today's regular guy superhero is a meditation teacher and carpenter from Austin, Texas, Mr. Anthony Long.
Hey, Andy. Thanks for having me on.
It's my pleasure. We've been bouncing back and forth on this for a while. Real Men Feel began like 3 years ago, and I can't remember how close to the starting of that I created the Facebook group, but I think you've been one of the guys in the group for quite a while.
Yeah, there was maybe around 100 people in it, or less, maybe 80 or so.
Yeah.
I don't know how many it's up to now.
Yeah, I think the last time I paid attention, I think it was like close to 300. And I posted a few times in the group. Yeah, when it was the first 100, I'm like, oh, I know all these guys. And now I look like, oh, I don't know many of these guys anymore. So I gotta engage more and get in there and kind of lead it so it can be of service to people. But so when we met through the Modern Mystery School, the Boston community around that. So what if we start there? How did you get involved in the Modern Mystery School?
That's a good place to start, and I think it's related to a lot of the things that we're going to be talking about today. I got to a point in my career as a carpenter, actually, where I had a lot of failures and a lot of I didn't come into the woodworking to be a business person, and that business aspect was what I was really struggling with. And what I see now is what it really is about relationships and doing what you say you're going to do, and it's about integrity and honesty and all these things. But in that time, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought, well, maybe this isn't working out for me, and maybe I should be doing something different. So I asked. It was like the first time I prayed in years, because I'm not at that point wasn't a praying person all the time. I awkwardly begged the universe and the stars and God and all the things for help. And a few weeks later, I met someone in the Modern Mystery School, and they started telling me about Kabbalah and these empowering workshops and activations. And I was like, okay, is this the thing? And it was the thing. It was my answered prayer, and it helped me get to a point of looking inward, but with also acquiring skills to help me kind of unravel the mystery of myself and work on healing. And then I met you maybe a year later, and watched your videos about your before and after your activation and your initiation. And I thought these were just so cool, like how you were able to just get in front of the camera and talk about your experiences.
Yeah, and it's funny, I've done that quite a few times now, but it all began with my life activation, which for those, if we're throwing around terms that no one's familiar with, that's kind of the first healing that the Mystery School offers to anybody. Every human being in the world can benefit from having their life activated, from having more energy, more light brought into their being. Kind of how I talk about it. Yeah. And I think and I don't, it's funny. I can remember seeing you for the first time at the Boston Center and just feeling this affinity for you. I don't recall ever being introduced or anything, just chatting with each other and wow, I really like this dude. And so So now you're in Austin, Texas. Is that where you're originally from?
Yeah, I grew up in Houston, and when I was about 21, I moved to Boston. I lived there for a while. I met someone. We moved to New York. I lived there for a while, and then I prayed and met someone else from Boston and moved back. And so I found the mystery school when I came back to Boston, and that was 2014 into 15. And I spent a year and a half there studying Kabbalah and going through some of the healing initiations there, and became a teacher, a meditation teacher, and someone who can facilitate the life activation for others. So it was a really big change for me to go from feeling like I was a total mess to feeling like, oh, I can help myself and, kind of hold the door open for the person behind me, and not in this place of perfection, but just helping each other along our journey, which is endless,
Yeah. I'm glad you bring out that not from a place of perfection, because something that I've fallen into a lot with any mentor or teacher, always held them up, put them on the pedestal, and thought they were perfect, and thought you couldn't help someone else until you were perfection, and that's just really not the case.
Yeah, and that comes up today. Who am I? What do I have to say? I'm not good enough to be on this show. Yeah. Like it's that's self-worth stuff. It's there. It's real. It's regular guy stuff.
Yeah. All right, so let's jump in. I think at one point you were going to be on a panel and maybe didn't make it, and I've got years worth of messenger exchanges saying, "Hey, want to be on the show? Hey, So why did you say yes?
Because I'm afraid, and I said something publicly, and that time frame, which we haven't really talked about it yet, but it was so important. It affected everyone, and we're talking about, for me, what it was is the metoo movement back in what I remember being October of 2017. We're like, through the filter of Facebook, the world just fell apart, and it rocked everyone, and we're all affected by this. And then the response to it was men coming out and saying it was me. And I had to look at that, and where it definitely was me, but I was afraid to say that. I was afraid to jeopardize this persona that I have on Facebook, which is some frail mask of perfection. Yeah.
So what has changed to today? You're willing to take that mask off, or is it something else?
Well, it's when we started talking about this, and you asked me if I was willing to do a show. That day was one conversation. And then I, talked to my partner, who's a woman, about this, and we had a conversation about it. And so the next day would have been a different conversation, and it's like, it keeps unfolding, and I have found no clarity or insights. I feel like maybe worse off than when I started this conversation, but here we are today. Like, the conversation keeps going, and it's a constant effort to find out the ways in which, for myself, speaking for myself, the ways where I'm not listening properly, or I'm in fear, or blocking the flow of light, which is maybe more vague than a masculine or man or whatever. And then articulating my thoughts, my feelings, all this stuff comes up. But then, being able to talk to a woman about things from my perspective, I see how different the perspectives are, and we disagree on a lot of different things about it. And as much as I think I don't want to be right, and I don't want to have opinions, it's a lie. Like, I don't want someone to shatter my belief of the truth, because it hurts to change, and it hurts to let go of these ideas that make me feel safe, I guess.
I like to think of this show, the whole Real Men Feel platform as somewhere where we're having the conversations that most men aren't having. So
Mm.
I'm thrilled that no, you're having this conversation ongoing in your life
Yeah.
with yourself, with your partner, and you know, possibly with other people as well. So I think that's important to share, and that anytime there's a, you know, a groundswell movement, something's gone viral, and it makes us kind of look inward. I love again that it's unfolding. It isn't like,
Hmm.
oh yeah, I recognize. Oh, I was a bad guy. That, yep, okay, I own it. Well, everything's fine now. Let's go back to business. And it's not
Yeah.
that simple.
No. Yeah. I started after that. I started saying that we live in a post Me Too world, because like things that happen in the collective, you don't go back to the way it was. There's no going back. We're always moving forward, and these events may rock us, but they pull us together in certain ways. And if they're painful, it's just, it is what it is. You know, it's necessary to look at it, absolutely, to talk about it. And why did it take so long? And but here we are. We move forward with this new awareness, and it's I feel fortunate to have found a path where I started looking at myself in this way, in a deeper way, because all this stuff started to happen in the world, in the collective. And if I didn't have the tools that I already started building like a little bit of a foundation with, I don't know how I would have reacted to these things. Like I see so much anger and confusion, and people think that the world is ending or it's worse than it's ever been. And the way I see it is, no, it's actually better than it's ever been. There's a lot of really crazy things happening, but yeah, I feel really fortunate that I've been able to like to weather the storm, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
through meditation and healing. You know.
And can you get more specific on what you see is different for perhaps you personally, or for the worldview of like what does the post Me Too world, like how would you define that?
Well, this is where in honesty, like fear comes up for me to speak publicly about it, because I was kind of kicked out of the Facebook conversation by women around that time, because of some of the things I said were maybe not allowing the full process to happen. I think when we when I hear someone share their process, I can, from a place of not having gone through the experience, say like, oh, this is the issue you're having, and if you try this, it'll fix it. So it's doing a couple of different things, and one of those is not allowing them to just have the process. And it's important. I mean, here we are as men. I mean, this shows, I feel, so important because it offers a place for men to have a process. And maybe not all of us, at least in Western culture, were allowed to have certain types of processes. Emotional, you know, crying in public, being upset about things for what someone else says is too long of a time. So it's kind of, I'm going back to that place where I was escorted out of the conversation by women, for not allowing the process to be what it was and to just hold space for it. I wasn't holding space for it. I was trying to help, look at the bright side of things. And that's not what someone wants to hear when they're having feelings come up and they want to talk about them and they want to express them. And that's like something I don't really know how to do, because I'm a man who had a father who didn't talk, period. Like, to us, our emotional process wasn't invited in the conversation. And so I only got that from the feminine, from my mom. You know, she would hold space for that. But then there's the mama's boy comments, and you know, I got all that sort of. I think it's very common for someone to relate with that. I had two older sisters who had Barbie dolls. I had more Barbie dolls in the house than GI Joe toys, and so I played with Barbies too. And I don't think there was an issue until a friend of my father's was in the house, and it was obvious that this was happening. Like, this boy is playing with Barbies, and so the word sissy was used, and so this is the type of teaching that I've had from men, or the masculine.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm saying a lot of different things here, but the Me Too movement, post Me Too world, I think men are being a lot more careful with their words, their energy. I notice myself, if I'm walking down the sidewalk and a woman's walking towards me on the sidewalk, I give her the entire sidewalk. I just step to the curb out of respect. But there's like, when is this is sad to me, when are we going to feel safe in space together with strangers of the opposite sex? And it's a process. Maybe I fear myself, fear my own masculinity, so I don't know the answers to any of these questions I have.
Well,
That's
being
what
willing,
we're talking.
right? Yeah, and being willing to ask and explore, and a foundation of the mystery school. To sum it up, in the shortest phrase, it's know thyself, and that's what it sounds like to me. That's what you are doing and attempting to do deeper and deeper.
I'm trying, yes.
Yeah. Cool.
Begrudgingly most of the time.
Well, there's no rule against that I know of.
Thank God.
It's interesting with the Me Too stuff. I look back and recognize, like, oh wow, so I can see, like, my actions in hindsight. Wow, that probably came off harsher than I realized, and wow, I wonder if people feel victimized by me. But I haven't noticed it changing how I operate and move with people, today. But I've also been married for 22 years, so I'm not, kind of out on the prowl or anything like that.
Right.
But yeah, so it's interesting. Some guys take this kind of Me Too backlash so far that they think somehow Me Too is, it's out to destroy masculinity, and a man can't be a man. And
right.
The best way I've seen of someone is, no, it's just like, men, please don't be a dick, right?
Yeah.
And we have to discover, well, what does that mean, right? Where is that line? And that line can move.
Right. And the victim mentality of the man is like, what? So I'm not allowed to say hi and be nice? And no, but how you do that, there's a big problem that I have seen my entire life, and I've heard. I lived in New York City, and I have tons of friends who live in New York City and get harassed every time they walk outside of their apartment, and that's not okay. And there's people on the street who have mental illness. It's still not okay. A man has to stand up to these men and say something. And I've watched myself pick my battles because the way that men operate in the world is aggression is the answer. And I've had a group of men say really insulting, lewd, crude things to a girlfriend of mine I was walking with. And she was the one who stopped me from getting into an altercation with them, because, I felt like I had to prove, you said this thing, I have to respond. It's the rule. But there was 3 of them, and there's one of me. And then what about her? And so she was smarter than I was in that moment and picked the battle. Wasn't worth it. And so how many women are afraid to or feel uncomfortable about walking by a group of construction workers that are on their lunch break? I mean, I do too, but I'm not uncomfortable for the reasons they are, and being sexually objectified. And I've looked at that myself, and like how I notice a person walking across the crosswalk. I notice men and women, but I maybe pay attention or appreciate the body of a woman more than I do with a man. Or I check out a dude's pecs because like I'm like, all right, maybe if I start working out I can do that. But if I'm checking out a woman, it's a different thing. I'm doing a different thing, and people feel that energy, and that's not always wanted, and most likely it's not. So maybe the majority of people don't understand how our thoughts and our energy actually affects other people, and their line is like, I didn't touch them, I didn't, I mean, maybe it's worse than that. Maybe it's, their line is like, I didn't rape them. What's the problem? I didn't force them to have sex with me. I just said a bunch of shit to them, and it was totally inappropriate. And, because what they were wearing, it's validated, or, and it's not okay. And I'm guilty of these things in these really subtle ways. Like, well, what are the conditions of the incident? Like a detective, but when it's spoken from the masculine, it's so tricky. Like, even saying this, I feel like that white male victim, and I don't know, where do we find the balance? And I'm not here, I don't know if our discussion is to talk about how to fix anything. It's maybe just to talk about how it's still confusing for me to be in this world as a man, trying to just do the right thing.
Yeah. And that's a neat differentiation, because doing the right thing and fixing something, very, very different.
Yeah.
So it's not like in that the initial Facebook conversations where you reported being like kind of kicked out by the women. Yeah. During anyone's kind of emotional, spiritual processing, often they just want to be heard. Like there's because you wanting to fix it implies that I'm broken, and maybe I don't feel broken. I just want to share what's showing up for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the masculine energy is and especially, my God, you're a carpenter. Like, you're
That's
trained to fix and repair things. Yeah.
Oh my God, you're freaking out. I can do it. I'll do it for you. And it's like, no, actually, that people don't want that. People they can do it themselves. Everyone wants to feel empowered. And teaching is not about taking the tool out of someone's hands and showing them how to do it. It's like guiding them through it. But that's if a student asks to be taught. It's implying or thinking that the masculine energy is just always supposed to be the teacher is a penetration without consent. It's like forcing my energy on to a situation without being invited into it. And that's like that spiritual masculine energy, and the feminine has to ask for that energy to be received. They need to want it, and it can be with another man too. Like, it's just imposing yourself on someone is usually resisted.
That's it, because kind of phrasing it that way, I'm really seeing and sensing the much more of a correlation than I ever realized from the cat calling from construction workers to, hey, let me fix that. I see something's really wrong with you. Let me step in and take care of this for you. And a
differentiation between them.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, they're not that different. That's what I'm.
Oh, they're not that different.
Yeah.
Let me fix something. I see them as different.
Oh. I
see them as the catcalling. I think I tend to try to find the good in the situation. I try to understand the mind of the perpetrator, the assaulter, the whatever, the person who's like done something that another person feels is wrong. I'm like, well, okay, maybe this is what they think is right. They grew up that way. They don't think they're appreciating someone. They're giving them a compliment. Maybe they were never taught that's like makes most people feel uncomfortable. The fixing thing is, like you said, implying that something is broken. So I don't see the catcalling as thinking something's broken. It's like, or maybe the smile, telling a woman to smile.
So the correlation I was referring to, I didn't state was when you called it was the projection of energy, right? So the projection of catcalling and the projection of let me fix you. That's what I meant. Yeah.
Same. Yes, I agree. Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
There's so many different things going on.
Yeah. And then yet, as you dig deeper, there's so many correlations, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because one thing I've noticed, it's like kind of I don't want to use that toxic term because people get triggered by that, and it's never really been well defined. But so an extreme version of masculinity often triggers that in other men, right? So if a group of guys are catcalling someone, you feel triggered and you want to come from the opposing angle, but almost with that much force,
with the exact same energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a masculine. I don't know if it's just masculine. I think that's like in our society, we meet fire with fire. We meet anger with anger. It's like, oh, okay, you can't hear me unless I'm yelling, and so we're gonna yell at each other.
Yeah.
Definitely present among men, I think. I see myself doing this right now as I listen to what you bring up, and I think about it for myself, my own perspective. My studies of Kabbalah, which is like a 3-pillar system, really just, it's in my mind and I use it as a filter. And so there's 2 pillars, and it's like the duality of this world. We have night and we have day. We have good and bad, which essentially a lot of these things are they're the same energy, but they're on a spectrum. And the word spectrum has been used a lot more lately with autism, the spectrum. But the spectrum is such a beautiful image that I think we can all understand, is like everything is on a spectrum. So gender is on a spectrum, and there's masculine and there's feminine, and there's different varying degrees where people kind of find their spot. And there is also like severity and mercy. And so that aggression being met with aggression is out of balance because it's the same end of the spectrum. So to counter that, there's essentially, we need to do the other thing, the opposing thing, which is mercy in some way. But how we do that is the challenge. And like, how do we, how do you like hold space for, I think I went to anger, and it wasn't necessarily anger. It was imposing our energy on someone else. So that energy just needs to go somewhere. We've got this energy, and then we see, oh, here's something that could receive my energy. I'm going to just throw it at them and see if they catch it. Like, heads up, football coming at your head. And like, somebody gets hit in the head with a football, and they're like, why did you just throw a football at me? I didn't ask for that. I'm just living my life over here. So you kind of have to say, hey, do you want to play catch? Is it cool if we play catch? I really like your shirt. That is a different way of interacting with people in general. Mm-hmm. And but no one taught me this stuff. I'm just figuring it out.
Yeah. And in my experience, our experience is the best way to learn, right? You can, yes. Someone could tell you something, you could read in a book, so you still have doubts, but when lived experience, it's harder to have the debate over what you've done, right?
Right, yeah. Right.
Cool. And I find, back to the energy, like energy is contagious. So if you're kind of a little bit unconscious, you'll just keep matching whatever's coming at you. Mm-hmm. And when I could recognize, like, wow, I'm a grown up, I've changed, is that when to stick with the same example, if I see, catcalling guys, even bullying or sexually calling out to someone, and I in the past, I would easily just jump into it or condone it by not saying anything. Mm-hmm. But more recently, I can find myself just going, hey, guys, that's not cool. Just relax. And just so, not have to match it, just subdue it and calm it down. And
right.
When I was in college, I worked as a bouncer, and that's where I kind of learned these techniques. And I'd break up a fight, and I'd end up befriending both ends of the fight. That guy's a jerk. Don't worry about him. Then they go, that guy was an asshole. Don't worry about him. And they both think they were my friends. Then by the end of my summer of being a bouncer, I'm like, I didn't even get in a fight. I'm pissed. What kind of bouncer am I? Where's my fight? What the fuck? I was getting pissed. And it was like, it took me a while to appreciate that, all right, maybe not fighting is actually a skill set. And that, I brought more good to the whole scene than I'm realizing. But and that's when it takes, we can't change anything until we have awareness of it. And then it takes, it can be an effort because it takes more conscious effort. We have to exercise our will to not fall into matching that energy and to choose something different. If something different is what we want.
Fair enough. Yeah. I think that's a really good way to look at it. That unconscious, someone who's not really conscious of that idea, of that energy, at least, just matches the energy, and they're just kind of perpetuating like sameness and like the status quo in their life. And if that's how they choose, that's fine. I'm trying not to, I got some feedback from a friend of mine that's, he sees my Facebook posts about healing and doing these things that are healthy for yourself. And so what he's hearing from that is that if he doesn't do that, I'm judging him and saying that he's not, treating himself good enough or being the best person by being, really spiritual. And it's like, oh, wow, like that is not what I mean by that. But it's good feedback to know that it's heard with what I'm saying. I'm trying to share positivity and positive, healthy things and my ugly process along the way, like painful mistakes and everything, the failures, all of it. Which is a little, I don't know how that's on topic. I went from here to there.
So,
but
it's all on topic. That's the beauty of these conversations.
Yeah. I was a bouncer too. Well, I wasn't a bouncer. I was a door guy. The summer that I made that big awkward prayer, it's totally related to what you just said, but also my entire story from the beginning. Like that's where I was when I made that request. Was I got a job as a door guy. I had basically lost all my clients as a woodworker. I wasn't working for anyone at the time, and a door guy position opened up. A friend of mine was working there, and so I went there, and she said, "Okay, this is your job description. Check IDs, make sure everyone has their ID on them, and be nice. That's it." And so I'm a skinny guy, had long hair and a beard at the time. It's like Jesus, looked like Jesus. And New York City, Lower East Side, there's bouncers everywhere. They're big like you and wearing all black. And here I am, the skinny, bearded, long hair guy checking IDs at the door. And every night, "You don't look like a typical bouncer." And I said, "I'm not a bouncer. We don't bounce our clientele. We're nice to them. We thank them for choosing us out of the hundreds of bars in New York City. Thank you for coming and joining us." And it's like this like thing happens in their mind. They're walking into a place and they just don't know what to expect because something totally different than the norm happened. And then they get down and the bartenders at this really exclusive cocktail bar that's hard to get into are nice to them and inviting. And it started to create this environment of like safety and love. And I didn't know this at the time. It took me a few months that I started to notice the energy of the room and the energy of people. And the bar was in the basement. So I was able to say, "Oh, the room is really packed right now. It's going to take you about 20 minutes to get a drink." I could lie to someone and say that it's, not going to be worth it for them if I saw that their energy wasn't going to match the room. Sometimes the room is full of couples. Sometimes the room is full of groups of single women. So like a group of single men who it may be a good match. It may not though, depending on the energy. And I started to recognize that and notice that and feel that. And that was actually when I decided that there was something more to life than what I was experiencing. And I wanted to find out more about like what I was here to do. And so kind of interesting tie-in there.
Yeah. And even your intentional word chase reminds me. So yeah, I was a doorman. We were called doormen by the club, but we all wanted to sound tougher, so we called ourselves bouncers. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's funny. Yeah. Cause this was an exclusive place on Cape Cod, very popular with all the professional athletes in Boston, local politicians. Yeah. It was not like a brawl every weekend or anything like that at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just reminded me like, oh yeah, wow. I put up a bouncer mask cause I wanted my job to sound tougher and cooler than, working the door and welcoming people in. Yeah. That's
right.
Funny.
Interesting.
Yeah. Now, Kabbalah has been mentioned a lot. And you kind of described it a little bit, but I wonder how would you describe Kabbalah to someone that's just never heard of it? How would you what would you call it?
Well, it's a system that's confusing. It's a map. So it's like, first off, it's the Kabbalah tree of life is a glyph. It's like a symbol that's got these different spheres. And if you are familiar with the double helix of the DNA, the genetic blueprint of the human and most living things on Earth, it looks like that. And so, okay, there's the double helix and there's this glyph that this person's talking about. What is it? It's a system. What it is the blueprint of creation. So there's a map. It's basically a map, and it shows how light both my hands. Okay. It shows how light comes from source, and it comes from just pure light and turns into different, like the colors, right? The color spectrum. So light comes down from source and it travels in this specific pattern through unmanifest, just before there's even thought, before there's idea, there's just all that is or ever was or ever will be. Some people call it God, not Santa Claus sitting in a chair in the sky, but like the all energy that we can even comprehend and everything that we can't. And then that light travels down and eventually becomes stones and rocks and physical human beings, my coffee mug. And so there's a path that it travels, light, and it travels through these different layers of density, these different aspects, through gender, through polarity. So those are some of the Hermetic principles. There's 7 Hermetic principles, which I don't have memorized and I don't fully understand, but one of them is gender. One of them is their laws. They're laws that are essentially how I describe laws are they're always true. Laws are never broken or found to be false. Rules are made by man. We call them laws, but they're opinions and judgments, and this is good and this is bad, and it's a way to keep us in line and safe. But laws are like, all things have gender, both masculine and feminine. The law of correspondences is that this corresponds to that. Like feminine corresponds to masculine. They correspond to each other. Severity corresponds to mercy. That's also the law of polarity, I believe, is one of the laws, which is that give and take, ebb and flow, good and bad, which they all kind of sound like the same thing. And so that's those 2 pillars, like where we have the feminine and we have the masculine, we have severity and mercy. And so how does this tie into the glyph? Is that the glyph shows these 2 pillars on each side and the center pillar. And how I describe that to people is that if they're familiar with the chakra system is down in the central core of the human being. And if we bring these 2 pillars in, we bring severity and mercy in, and we bring feminine and masculine in, and we bring anger and grief in, and we pull them together, we become aligned and we become centered. We understand the term of being centered, being in balance. Because if we're on one end of the spectrum or the other end of the spectrum, we're out of balance. We can fall over, So a great teacher, Dr. Teresa Bullard, said that when we're aligned, we cast no shadow. So when we're out of balance, we look to the left and we see our shadow, or we're over here, we look over here and we see our shadow. But when we're true centered, like a sundial at high noon, we cast no shadow. And that's where we want to be, is we want to be centered and we want to be in balance between all these aspects. And the world is our teacher of, like choice. We have a choice in every moment. It's either this or that. Really, like the choices are simple. It's this or that, getting me closer to the thing I want or not. High road or low road, emotional response or expressing my emotions, So, and so I'm trying to figure these things out for myself, because I'm constantly surprised at how I think I know what's going on. And then my partner tells me, like, you didn't hear what I said. I said something totally different. You're not listening. And I think I'm hearing it. I heard you say these words, and I put together the story in my head, but it's not the truth of what this person's expressing to me. So the experience of being human is so bizarre to me, because there's no way to express ourselves fully. No one will ever understand me fully. And therefore I can't really understand anyone else fully. And it's like, we're trying to. So did I explain Kabbalah at all? A really great way to describe Kabbalah for like the creative person or the entrepreneur or someone who wants like a quick, a way to like understand manifestation or getting their thing on the ground and rolling, is that there's 4 worlds to this glyph. There's this glyph, 2 pillars, 1 pillar in the middle, and at the top is a triangle, and this is the idea. So like this thing that's kind of in our mind, and we don't even have a name for it yet. This is the idea. It's like before we're even thinking about it, there's a feeling somewhere, and then we're like, oh, okay. And we start to think about it, and so it's idea, and then it becomes thought. And these also relate to the alchemical elements: fire being the idea, air being the thoughts. And then we say, okay, well, how do I implement this into how do I get it done? All right, well, maybe I need to call this person. So we start to plan it, and that brings it down into the water element, which is interesting because water is the emotion, and that's planning. And I don't really understand all that, but we go from fire, we come to air, we bring it down through water, and maybe we start swimming with that energy, right? We're like, oh, maybe we can go over here and call this person. And then, oh, well, I went to go to this place, but it was closed. And then in the parking lot, I met this person. And so we're kind of like, if we flow like water, we get into this part of it. And then eventually we ground it into the earth. And then the thing becomes physical. And so Kabbalah, if we go further into the esoterics of Kabbalah, just before things become physical into the 4 elements, they're in this state of almost physical and this illusion. And this is the sphere of Yesod. That's a Hebrew word for foundation. So there's a tarot card that I always kind of relate to it. There's all these different correspondences. There's colors, there's scents, essential oils, animals. Each sphere on the tree of life in this glyph is a place, and they have hundreds, if not thousands, of correspondences that are very specific to that place. As light is traveling down, as your idea or your project is traveling down this creative process, it ends up in this one sphere before physicality. And this is where the subconscious mind is, and everyone else's subconscious mind. So we're like constantly bombarded with like the hundreds of thousands of thoughts that we have in a day. I don't remember, it's some enormous amount of thoughts that we have per minute, per day. But then we're also filtering through other people's thoughts and subconscious projects and things that are almost manifest. My neighbors are nearby, their thoughts are in my psyche because our energy is melding together. So there's this like illusion that everything passes through this like really confusing place before things become physical. So I think we don't understand each other a lot of times on that level just before things are spoken or said, but we feel it, but we're, maybe there's confusion in our feelings, and And also, I don't think I taught anyone anything during that.
Well, I would invite you to choose a different thought. But
Okay, all right. It's just swimming around in there.
Yeah. No, because it's great. Like, that's why I asked it. I didn't attempt to do it because I'm and you mentioned it once. So if you haven't heard of Kabbalah, you might have heard of the Tree of Life, which shows up in lots of different artwork and paintings and brown. So that is another symbol of Kabbalah, of that glyph, kind of a more approachable version of the glyph, perhaps, is just the notion of the Tree of Life.
Tree of Life.
And going through Kabbalah, we call it, I'm in my, I'm in my tree. And so right now I'm in my second tree, and I still can. So I've done the whole process once. I'm in it about halfway on my second tree. I do not attempt to explain it. And I've had friends now that are in it with me, and I'm like, I just, it's amazing. It's cool. It's beneficial. Yesterday was the anniversary of me purchasing a Tesla Model X. And that was manifested from my first Kabbalah experience. So that's usually what I tell people. Like, if you want a Tesla, check out Kabbalah. Because that's what worked for me.
And that's not the only thing about it, but it's there was an interesting experience. I just started another tree here in Austin, and there was this point where during the weekend, this is the first weekend, and we're about to ascend from we're going into the energy of this tree. We're not just studying it. We're not just reading books about it. We do that also, but we're actually in the mystery school. Everything's about energy, and it's about experience, not like being so experienced, but like having an experience. So the teachers who put on these workshops, they create a space with energy, and in that space they bring in the energy of the lineage that we're working with, the lineage of King Solomon. That's the lineage that the modern mystery school is working with. And so they bring that lineage in, which is every initiate from the lineage that's come before us, that their wisdom, their knowledge, and their experiences and their failures, and all of it come into the teaching space, right? And we're going to ascend into the energy of the tree through a really sacred process. And so part of that is an explanation of the first weekend. What's the weekend? It's the workshop. The Kabbalah program that you're in and that I'm in different cities, it's taught the exact same way by different international teachers, is about 10 months to minimum 9 months. It's a long process. Ours is going to be about a year, and it's based on the teacher's schedule. So it's a many months process. There's 10 spheres on the tree, and we go into the energy of each sphere, and we sit there for a while, about a month, sometimes longer, and we experience the different correspondences of the sphere, and we see it in our life. So at the beginning is the four elements, which the Hebrew word for kingdom is malkuth, and in that place we take inventory of what is and what's in our life. But we're also given an opportunity to ask the tree, because the tree is, like I said before, the roadmap to creation. So we didn't come here and here being Earth, we didn't come to Earth to just get a job, pay bills, and die and suffer, or be on prescription pills forever. And if prescription pills help you, thank God. But we didn't come here to suffer forever and then just leave. Like, that is not the point of life. The point of life is it's a beautiful gift to be physical and spiritual, dual in nature. We are of the earth, but we are greater than the earth. We can work with archangels, elemental beings. The glass is not half empty or half full. It is full. It's full of light. It's always full. And we don't understand, like, what is around us is like potentiality. There's potential all around us. And Kabbalah teaches us how to use those energies, how to bring things into our life. We can use it for someone can say, "Oh, Andy, you're so full of yourself because you got a Tesla," and I don't know what your reason is. What is your reason? Why did you get a Tesla? I won't assume, because you're right here.
Oh, it was just a dream car. I thought it was the coolest thing. It was on my vision board, and I was shocked that I got it. Like, yeah, it was.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was just like pure fun, and I feel like I'm 16 years old every time I get behind the wheel. Still.
that's amazing. The downside is that you don't know how to drive anymore, right?
Well, it took a while. Yeah, no, that was real. Stay away from new Tesla owners. They're dangerous.
Yeah, if they're in rentals, right?
Yeah.
But I also want a Tesla, and the reason I want a Tesla is because I believe in the product. I believe in like getting off of fuel, and it's an amazing machine. It's from energy, and I just I want one. And so we can look at something. I usually use the weather as an example because some people love the rain and some people hate the rain, and it's just weather. It's just happening, and we impose our opinion on it or our judgment on it. But so anyway, the Tesla, I want a Tesla. I'm going to bring this into my life. Someone can say like, well, I want 20 Rolls Royces, and okay, well, why do you need? I don't know why you need 20 Rolls Royces. So I'm going to just stay out of judgment and say, cool, go for it. I want you to have 20 Rolls Royces. So there was in my workshop, which was a few weeks ago, there was a lot of resistance to this. Like, we're such a materialist society, and that sounds greedy. Like, so, okay. Well, you could think of something else that you want in your life. It doesn't necessarily have to be, I want a brand new, really expensive car. But it could be that because maybe you've had a bunch of cars that break down on you and like don't work, and you just want a car that's reliable and it lasts for a long time. But that's not really the point of Kabbalah. The point of Kabbalah is to teach you how to bring things into your life, to bring into your life anything that you want. And the best way to do that is to use a physical item. To say, like, for me, it's usually a home, like a new home space. Like I want a home with an extra room to have an altar in, and just like a meditation room and prayer room. Or recently an image came up for me, which is having bay windows with 2 comfortable chairs, a little bookcase, a little lamp, and a little kettle for tea. So I can just get cozy there all winter. And my beloved can sit in her comfy chair. And that's actually something I can put on my petition. I can ask the tree for this, and I can go through the steps of idea, thought, plan, and action, and bring this into physicality. So I'm not a greedy person. So for me, like, using magic is not about greed. It's about making my life better so that then I can help other people make their lives better, because that's like how I choose to live in the world. So Kabbalah is a system that teaches you the art of creation and the creative process. It also shows you the psyche of the subconscious mind, and how where the left brain sort of idea is and the right brain sort of idea is, and how they're kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum, but they work together. And now I'm mentioning the tarot again, the 2 of Pentacles at least in the Rider-Waite artwork. The Rider-Waite tarot deck has this guy juggling 2 pentacles, but there's an infinity loop there. And so that when I pull that card, I don't think about, the number 2 and the pentacles. I'm just like, okay, ebb and flow. Just go with the flow. It's just like real simple. Like, everything is energy, and there's a give and take, and there's an exchange. And if I'm putting out something, I'm going to return. I'm going to receive something. And if I'm not receiving, and I think I need to be receiving more, if I'm maybe not seeing that I'm abundant or I don't have money coming in, I say, okay, well, what kind of things am I holding on to that I can let go of or put out there that can bring that flow back? And so that's another way to use Kabbalah. There's infinite ways to use it. And once you go through the process, it becomes this embedded filtering system to perceive the world around you. And it helps me understand things.
Yeah, it's neat. I had no idea we would go so deep into the mystical and Kabbalah. And so I do want to, you mentioned Dr. Teresa Bullard, who I believe I know I've taught under her, so I assume you've had
Yes.
personal classes with her. Great.
Once.
She has a tremendous series on Gaia TV, a subscription television service full of, it might be called Mystery School Teachings, but
Yep.
yeah.
I think it's the Mystery Teachings or Mystery School Teachings.
Yeah. So
but yeah, that was the quote came up. Like I wanted to say that, but I thought, oh, well, it's perfect that this quote is someone that, I'm going to name drop her because there's some really good information out there. Those shows are awesome.
Yeah.
And she talks about.
Yeah, I've been shocked how much she shares. I thought, wow, I thought that was like secret initiate, high level stuff only. Wow, they people can hear that. Neat. Yeah, there's a lot about Kabbalah, how it works, a lot about everything and how it works. But I'll add links to that for more information if people want to check that out. I'll put that in the show notes at realmenfeel.org. But yeah, there's phenomenal stuff. Yeah. Awesome. Her
background was she's a doctor of physics or something.
Quantum physics.
Quantum physics. Yeah. I mean, so there you go. And essentially there's a course coming out in, I believe, November at the Modern Mystery School in Canada this year. That's called Quantum Kabbalah.
Yeah. If people are looking to learn more about meditation, the Mystery School needs some carpentry work, and they're in the Austin area, how can people get in touch with you?
Oh, wow. Yeah, well, I have an email address. It's, I can share it with you. You can put it in the links. It's long.janthony@gmail.com. Yep. I do high-end woodworking and I do a lot of trim carpentry, and I really like making furniture. And I also do home repairs and things like that. And I teach meditation. I'm teaching right now at the Soul Healing and Wellness Center in North Austin. And I offer healing sessions there and at the Modern Mystery School, Texas. And you can go to the Modern Mystery School Texas website. And I'm not listed on that website, but you can go there and find out about classes, Mystery School classes. Okay. And book sessions or healing sessions there, and go in and have tea with someone. There's a lot of cool things happening in Austin, a lot of really cool communities. And the Modern Mystery School is one of those. And it's the one that's helped me so much. And so it's where my passion is. And yeah, thanks for letting me share that.
Beautiful. Yeah. And, this show introduced me to lots of just cool people and people I never think I'd, engage with or meet. And the same with Modern Mystery School, just a fabulous community of like-minded people. And almost the further you go, the more like-minded you discover you are. It can be whatever you make. It can just be a weekend class, or it can be the start of a long pattern. I've been in thinkball for like 4 years now, which if you'd asked me 4 years ago, will I be doing this in 4 years? I go, no way. Why? And, so it's all, but for me, each step I take gives me the pre-thought energy but I didn't realize it was there, and that I do want the next step. Oh, I do want to keep going, and I do want to see what else there is to learn and experience. So, yeah.
Right.
Awesome. So I want to thank you for saying yes, Anthony, for coming up, for sharing of yourself, for being willing to be open about your own confusion and questions. And because that's the authenticity of a regular, normal, everyday, not even just man, but human being, right?
Yeah. I like the regular guy talk. I feel like a regular guy, and it's really cool because I'd like to be that author or that speaker or one stop on my tour, but I'm not there, and we all have a place in the conversation at every step of the way, I believe.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. Yeah. So thanks for being here. Thanks for being part of the conversation. And wherever you're listening to this, again, check out realmenfeel.org for lots of links that were mentioned. I'll try to keep filling in the dots for kind of everything we touched on if you want to dig up more about it. And from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you, the listener, for listening and being part of our conversations. So wherever you are, wherever you're discovering Real Men Feel, please give a share, give a like, a subscription, a review, whatever you can do to engage and interact. I greatly appreciate it. I know other listeners, other guests, all appreciate it too. So keep your own discovery, keep your own process of knowing thyself going, and be good to yourself. Thank you for listening to Real Men Feel. Reach out to us at realmenfeel@gmail.com. Learn more about Andy Grant at theandygrant.com. Until next time, visit realmenfeel.org or the Real Men Feel Facebook group and share what you thought of this episode. Please give this podcast a review on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you are discovering Real Men Feel.